should have it written down. The quiz at the end of the week. We'll have a test next Thursday. Okay, I'm going to field questions on the quiz. So on the quiz itself, this was the fill in the blank quiz. Are there any questions on why you got something wrong or how to do something? So please give me a question. Sarah. 19. Number 19. 19 says, okay, 19 is one where you have a plus minus situation. So I can box method it, or I can remember the trick. And the trick is when it's plus minus of the same thing, there's no middle. Hold on a second. J times J is J squared. J times 7 is 7J. Negative 7 times J is negative 7J. And negative 7 times 7 is negative 49. Okay, if I combine these two here, that goes to 0. So you'd have J squared minus 49 is your answer. All right, so number 10 or 9, looking at number 10, factor. So factor means pull out of each term the same thing and the same number of things. So I'm going to factor number 10. Okay, I'm going to factor number 10. So what I say to these is just attack them. What number goes into 56 and 64? You have to know your facts, or you get out your calculator and work with it. Sarah. 8 goes into both. So I'm going to pull an 8 out of here, and I'm going to pull an 8 out of here. Well, 8 times 7 is 56, and 8 times 8 is 64. So when I pull the 8 out front, it leaves a 7 behind for the 56 and an 8 behind for the 64. The plus sign is left behind also. Now we're going to pull out the W. Well, I can pull out one W from each one, but I can pull more than that out of each one. And I had told everyone to use the what? Use the, no? Yes. Micah. Use the smallest W. That is right, Micah. And the smallest W is W to the 8. So I'm going to take W8 out of each one. When I take W8 out of 13, that leaves, what, 5 behind? When I take W8 out of here, it doesn't leave any behind, but we don't put a 0, we put a 1 there. So it's times 1, or not 81, times 1. So that would be your answer for that one. I'm sorry, I forgot to put the W8 here. So that is the answer. If I were to redistribute it, 8 times 7 is 56. W8 times W5 is W13. And so on and so forth. So, okay, so let's look at 18. 18 is the 18 is the one that has the boxes. It has a large box, and then it has a small box in it. And it says if I cut the small box out of the larger one, what's the area of this region out here? Okay, well, the dimensions of the larger box are x plus 5, and it's a square, so this side is x plus 5 also, and this is x, and this is x. We want to subtract the areas. The areas are found by multiplying the base times the height. So this area here is going to be the binomial x plus 5 times x plus 5. And this area in here is just going to be x times x. When I do this multiplication using the box or FOIL method, I get x squared plus 10x plus 25 minus x squared. And then if I just do the math here, this cancels with this, and this is my answer. Go over this real quick. We're going to square 2x minus 6. So that's 2x minus 6 times 2x minus 6. I'm going to use this method. It seems to work. These two multiplied is 4x squared. this and this is negative 12x. Negative 6 and times 2x is negative 12x. And negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. When I combine these two, they become negative 24x. My answer is this, minus that. Okay? Who asked? For number 3, it wants the degree. The degree is the sum of the powers. So this degree would be the 6th degree. Number 4, this is 8x squared minus 8x plus 8. There's 3 terms, therefore it's a trinomial. There's 3 nomials or monomials, which is a trinomial. The square, a lot of people put cubic, but it's really quadratic. So as an intro to this lesson, 9-5, I need a number that multiplies to equal one number but adds up to another. For example, give me a number that multiplies to be 10 but adds up to, and the two numbers, the same two numbers add up to 7. So, Khadija. Okay, 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 plus 2 is 7. That is correct. Okay, this is how today's lesson will go. You need two numbers that multiply to equal one number, and at the same time they add up to another number. So for example, another example, give me something that multiplies to be 42 but adds up to 43. Two numbers multiply to equal 42. Sarah? 1 times 42 equals 42, and 1 plus 42 equals 43. Very good. So that's how tonight's homework is. It's how basic tonight's homework is. But it looks a little bit complicated, as you can see with the notes. So let's look at the notes. So we're factoring trinomials of this type. Now the type is that there's a plus sign across the board here for now, for these questions. We're going to get to some minuses eventually, but right now we got all pluses. So your goal is to do what we just did. And what we just did was we looked at we looked at this number, and it has to add up to the middle number. Because when you do the box method, the last number is a combination of the first two, the diagonals multiplied together. So what does that mean? That's a little complicated. So what you do to attack these problems is take the last number and find the factors of it. So basically, what multiplies to equal 15 and at the same time adds to be 8. Now, they have a couple of numbers here. They have 1 and 15. Well, that adds up to 16. That's not the number we want. They have something in 5, and 3 times 5 is 15, and 3 plus 5 is 8. So that's the combination we want. So again, your goal is to find values that multiply to be the last and add up to the middle. So we're undoing the box method. Remember how you added the diagonals? That's the adding of these two numbers. And then that last corner in the bottom was where you multiplied the outside numbers. So what you do to present your answer, and your answer is right here. This is your answer. Which you can't see because I just covered it up like that. This is your answer. What do I mean by that? Well, when you find out those two numbers that multiply to equal the n number, so 3 times 5 is 15, and at the same time 3 plus 5 is 8, you present them in this form here. You put parentheses, you write an X, and then you put the two numbers in with their sign. In this case, they're both positive. Okay, that's all there is to do to this. So they do a check here. They do the box method here, which was on the quiz last week, and they see that it checks with the original question. So when you do these tonight, you look at the last number. Find factors of the last numbers, or numbers that multiply to equal the last number, but add up to the middle number. Okay, questions on this? We'll move to the next example. No questions. If you look at the next example, now it has a minus sign in there. Okay, but we're going to do the same thing. Now they do a chart over here. You don't have to do the chart. You can. A lot of people can do these in their head. The chart helps sometimes when these get a little bit more complicated. So when you have a minus and a plus, it's a little different situation. So we're going to do the same thing. We need things that multiply to equal 20 and at the same time add up to -9. Well, they list the factors here. They list -1 and -20, 2 and -10, 4 and -5. And which one of these add up to -9? And everybody said -4 and 5 do. So if we add these all up, you can use your calculator for this. You'll see that they, the one that matches what we want, that adds up to the middle and multiplies to be the end, so multiplies to be -20, I'm sorry, +20, -4 times -5 is +20, but adds up to -9, it's the -4 and the 5. Now what do you do with those numbers? You make these little parentheses here. So this is going to be your answer right here. And your answer is the two numbers you found out to be in the chart, and you put them like that. Now, if you reverse these, you put the 4 first and the 5 second, that's okay. Okay, so basically, look at the last number, find factors of the last number, something that multiplies together and equals the last number, and at the same time adds up to the middle number. Okay, questions on this before we try the quick checks here? All right, I'm going to pause for a second. You don't have to make the chart, but sometimes the chart is helpful. So make a little T. Okay, I put on one side what we multiply. So we need to multiply to equal 10, and we have to add up to 7. So two numbers that multiply to equal 10. I saw on a lot of people's papers, some people had 1 and 10. Well, that adds up to 11. And 2 and 5, and that adds up to 7. So this is the one we want to use. And the 2 goes, since the 2 is positive, we put +2, and the 5 is positive, we put +5, and that's our answer. Okay, so your answer should be 2 parentheses together next to each other. So So now I'm going to do the same thing on on letter B. Again, if you need a little help, what numbers multiply to equal 20 and add up to 21? And that should be pretty. Okay, so that one we saw was 1 and 20 multiplied equal 20, and 1 plus 20 equals 21. Okay, and we want to get into the habit of doing these questions like this. Look at the last number first, find its multiples. So we have 10 times 2, 4 times 5, 1 times 20, and pick the one that matches the middle and use it for your answer. Okay? So let me ask on the next one, what two numbers, well, first of all, what do we want to multiply to equal the last number? Spencer. What do I want to multiply to equal? 13 or 30? Which number do I use for my multiples? For my factors, I should say. 30. So I look at the 30, and I find two numbers that multiply to equal 30, and at the same time add up to 13. Now, 5 and 6 multiply to be 30, but they don't add up to 13. They add up to 11. So, Miranda. 10 times 3. So then I just write a plus 10, a plus 3, and I'm done. Yes, Khadija, who has her hand up.
Does it matter what order the numbers go in?
No, it does not matter what order they're in. Notice I showed here, didn't matter what order they go in. Because when you do the box method, you're going to get the same answer. Okay, now we're at, now we have some negative signs down here. Okay, so let's take a second. Factors of 25 that add up to negative 10. Khadija, what do you got? 5, but more importantly, it's got to be negative 10. So I make my little chart, negative 10. 5, I'm sorry, that's not right, my bad. I make my chart and put a 25 here. If I put 5 and 5, that adds up to 10, not negative 10. What do I need?
5, wait, 5 plus 8.
If I do negative 5 and negative 5. So if I do negative 5 and negative 5, that adds up to negative 10. So those are the numbers I'm looking for. Now, we're going to move on to 18. Again, if you know your math facts, these are very easy. If you don't know your math facts, use the calculator. 18 ends in an 8, therefore it's divisible by 2. Will 2 work for this? 18 divided by 2 is 9. Is 9 plus 2 11? 9, 10, 11. It is, but it has to be negative 11. So negative 9 times negative 2, that equals 18. And at the same time adds up to negative 11. So I can just make in my parentheses and put a minus 9 and a minus 2. If I did positive, it would have been positive 11, but we have a negative 11 there. Now, C is a little bit more difficult, perhaps. We need two numbers that multiply to equal 36 and add up to negative 15. Right away, you're going to think 6 and 6, but that adds up to 12. And negative 6 and negative 6 add up to negative 12, so that's not right. So go a little up and a little down. Well, how about 4 and 9? 4 times 9 is 36, but that adds up to 13. Okay, so we need to go a little further. Got to add up to 15. Yes. 3 times 12 is 36. So 36 has a lot of factors to it. 36, 3 and 12 work. That adds up to 15. I need negative 15, so we make them negative 3, negative 12. And we have our answer here. Okay. Now, if I were to box method any of these answers here, I would get the original question. Check my work. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing on the next page, except now we have pluses and minuses together. So as we saw on this page, let's look at this real quick, and just what generalization can you make about when they're all pluses? When they're all pluses here, they're all pluses here. Okay? What happens when they're minus plus? Then these are both minuses. And most importantly is this is a plus sign, and then these have to be minuses, both minuses. Because if one's a minus, one's a plus, it doesn't work. On the next page, you're going to do minus and plus. Am I recording? Yes, I am. Okay, good. So let's look at the, now we have one that we have plus minus. Okay, when you have plus minus here, you'll have plus minus in your answer. So when I have a plus minus here, my answer is going to be plus minus. You'll see when we get there. Okay, this gets a little bit more difficult. I still use the same rules. Factors of negative 48 that add up to 13. So it even says here, identify the factors. That means what times what is 48 and adds up to 13. Well, I'm thinking 6 times 8 is 48, but does that add up to 13? Well, you have your calculator out and you do it quick, or you do it in your head. No, that's up to 14. they have 1 in 48, so let's show you what they did. They experimented. They got all these factors. Do you have to do this every time? No. If you can figure it out right away, you're in good shape, but you might have to do this every time. So they started with 1, the 1 and the 48. That didn't work. Then they went to 2 and 24. And that's going to be, that's not going to work, 22 and 22. 3 and 16 and 16 and 3 and negative 16 and 16 negative 3 is the one that works. And the one that adds up to negative, I'm sorry, positive 13 is going to be this one right here. So that's the one we use. What do you mean use? You use the 16, which is positive, and the 3, which is negative, and you get your answer. You do x plus 16, x minus 3 as your answer. So your job is to figure out what those magic numbers are, those special numbers are to multiply or add. I mean multiply and add. So if you look at this one over here, well, now they're both minuses. When they're both minuses or they're plus minus, you're going to have a plus minus situation. Now, you don't need to know that for ahead. You don't have to memorize that, but that just helps you with your answer. So if we look at this chart here, which is a different chart, now we're dealing with 20, the number 20, negative 24. So if we look over here, this equals negative 24, but it adds up to 23. This equals negative 24, but it adds up to, I'm sorry, negative 23. This one adds up to positive 23. We want it to add up to what? What do we want this one to add up to? Negative 5. Okay? And that's this answer right here. Now, how would I get that? Well, I would just start dividing on my calculator. One's pretty doable. Divide by 2, that's doable. It could also done 4 and 6. That wouldn't have worked. But 3 and 8 does work. So your answer becomes, these go down here in your answer, one for each side. All right. This is the last set when there's a double variable. When there's a double variable, you're doing the same thing. Actually, your best bet is to look at the numbers first. They put the G's, well, no, they didn't. They actually went through the numbers. So I'm looking up for factors of negative 60. So what times what is negative 60? So one has to be a negative. Because they're both positive, both negative, you're going to get a positive answer. And then which one of these adds up to the middle number, which is 17? And again, if you need to use your calculator, use it. You'll see that the last one is the one that adds up to positive 17. So my answer is going to be negative 3, positive 20. So when you do the box method, your corners are going to add up to 17. In the end, the back corner, or the diagonal is going to add up to negative 17, and the bottom number is going to be 60. Now, there's an extra G here. So when there is another variable involved, so when you have G squared and D squared, you're going to put a variable in each spot and then figure out the numbers. So that's just an extra step. It's really not too bad. So how do you know your answer's right? Do the box method and to check your work. We're going to go down here to the quick check. You're going to try these quick checks and see if you can get these. And it is very important that you're successful at this. So please don't just wait for me to write the answers on the board. We're looking at letter C, 56, negative 56. Which one has to be negative in order to get a negative 1 over here? The 7 or the 8 has to be negative. The 8 does. Okay, that gives me this answer here. Okay, the last questions here. These are the double variable ones. So all of your answers are going to have two variables, an x and a y. But you have to figure out the number that goes in front of y for each one by doing the same method. And same thing with v and w, and the same thing with m and n. Yes, just like m and n. So, since they're all plus here, that helps you. We got plus minus, that's going to be two different answers, and we got minus minus. Well, plus minus, yeah, plus minus and minus minus are going to be a negative and a positive situation. Your job is to number in the first one, 4A, is to find what's my chart. Let me call on somebody. What goes on the multiple side of the chart here, BB? What goes here for 4A? A little louder. No. No. What are we looking to multiply to be the factors? Multiply to be no 24. Add up to 11. Okay, looking at this one here, I'm not going to do the answers just yet. What do we multiply to be? What number do we put in the multiple side? Multiply 24, add to 11. Multiply to be 40, negative 48, add to 2. Multiply to equal negative 60, add to be negative 17. Now these might seem tricky, but a lot of times they're the easier of the numbers. 24 to 11. Well, I know 6 and 4 right away, but that's going to get me 10. Would anybody know what the answer is this one? 8 and 3. 8 and 3 works. How about negative 48 to 2? 6 times 8 is 48. 6 and 8 are separated by 2 if you make that negative. Okay? And then the last one, 60 to 17, that one's a little tricky. But if you think about it, 3 times 20 and make which one negative? The 20 negative. Okay, I will post this video online, provided it's done